Devaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So we're reading from chapter 4, text number 36 and 37. Apicha dasi papabhya sarvabhya papakrit tamaha sarvam jnanam plavenaiva vrijnanam santarasyasi apicha dasi papabhya sarvabhyah papakrit tamaha sarvam jnanam plavenaiva vrijnam santarasyasi apicha dasi papabhya sarvabhyah papakrit tamaha sarvam jnanam plavanaiva vijnanam santarasyasi. Somebody would like to try? Word for word synonyms. Api, even. Chet, if. Asi, you. Are. Papabhyah, of sinners. Sarvabhyah, of all. Papakrit, tamaha, the greatest sinner. Sarvam, what's Sarvam? All. Sarvam is all. It's a common Sanskrit word. Sarvam. Sarvam, all. Such sinful reactions. Jnana, plavena, by the boat of transcendental knowledge. Eva, certainly. Brijnanam, the ocean of miseries. Santarasyasi, you will cross completely. Translation by Srila Prabhupada. Even if you are considered to be the most sinful of all sinners, when you are situated in the boat of transcendental knowledge, you will be able to cross over the ocean of miseries. So let's repeat this very wonderful verse today. Translation. Even if you are considered to be the most sinful of all sinners, when you are situated in the boat of transcendental knowledge, you will be able to cross over the ocean of miseries. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. Prabhupada ki jai. Proper understanding of one's constitutional position in relationship to Krishna is so nice that it can at once lift one from the struggle for existence. What can it do? Lift one at once. Very powerful. Lift one at once. Which goes on in the ocean of nescience. This material world is sometimes regarded as an ocean of nescience, and sometimes as a blazing forest. In the ocean, however, however expert a swimmer one may be, the struggle for existence is very severe. If someone comes forward and lifts the struggling swimmer from the ocean, he is the greatest savior. Perfect knowledge received from the Supreme Personality of Godhead is the path of liberation. The boat of Krishna consciousness is very simple, but at the same time, the most sublime. So we're doing 37 today also. So we'll just read over 37, translation. As a blazing fire turns firewood to ashes, O Arjuna, so does the fire of knowledge burn to ashes all reactions to material activities. Purport. Perfect knowledge of the self and the super self and of their relationship is compared herein to fire. This fire not only burns up all reactions to impious activities, but also all reactions to pious activities. Very interesting. Turning them to ashes. There are many stages of reactions. Reaction in the making, reaction fructifying, reaction already achieved, and reaction a priori. But knowledge of the constitutional position of the living entity burns everything to ashes. When one is in complete knowledge, all reactions, both priori and posteriori, are consumed. In the Vedas, Brihat Aranyaka Upanishad 4.4.22, it is stated, Ubhe uhaivas ete tatatya amrita sadvim mi. one overcomes both the pious and impious reactions of work. Om Ajnana-timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayaham Tadati Swavadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shyuta Padakamalam Shri Gurum Vaishnavanamuscha Shri Rupam H.GRathim Sahagana Raghunatam Tam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Sarvadutam Parijana Sahitam Krsna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Sri Vishakanamuscha Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Dinamine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Bhaskatade Satarine Vancha Kalpaturubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhyevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaura Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So, we're almost ending this chapter. Actually, we're in the last part of this chapter. And it's been very instructive, showing the flow of knowledge and transcendental knowledge. Krishna is elucidated, is given very deep insight on different levels of this knowledge, and we've just learned just now in 34 how one receives this transcendental knowledge. Now what we're learning about is what is the process of this knowledge and how does it work. So which one of these ways should one follow? That you have to get from a spiritual master. So we've heard so much of information, but how to know which one of these ways we should follow? That we have to ask from somebody who knows Tattva Darshana, somebody who knows the truth, somebody who's seen it. And therefore when he explains it to you, he can give you that insight onto how to understand this, and he can explain it to you in such a way that you will also understand. You'll also have an experience of having this kind of knowledge. So before we continue, let's quickly just see what we've learned thus far in the 4th chapter and what we're about to learn here in this 5th chapter. So, yeah. Okay. Alright, so this is a summary of the 4th chapter that we've done. You can see the different... Somebody would like to read? Rasa Sindhu Prabhu, can you see it on there?
Chapter 4.
Yeah. So what we did thus far?
Chapter 4 overview.
Right.
Verses 1 to 10.
Right.
Krishna teaches and establishes Dharma.
Right. So from verses 1 to 10 we learned about Krishna, Yada Dharmasya, what he comes to do. Okay, go on.
Verses 11 to 15, Krishna is the goal and the creator of all paths.
Yes. So we learned about the different paths that was there. So we heard about something about this knowledge, but it wasn't too clear. And we heard that Krishna is the goal of these paths. Okay, go on.
Text 16 to 24, Karma Yoga as Dharma.
Yes. Then we heard that we have to do Dharma. If we don't act, we will be bound. So Karma Yoga was shown as the process by which if we do activity, it must be connected to Krishna. Otherwise, there's bondage. Okay, go ahead.
Text 25 to 33, achieving jnana through sacrifices.
Yes, dhyana. So knowing the aspect of how to gain knowledge, wisdom, knowledge, using the method of sacrifice. and building up. We're moving higher now, right? Okay, go ahead.
Text 34 to 42.
Yes.
Glory of Divya Jnana.
Yes, that's where we are right now. The glory of Divya Jnana. So that's the final aspect of what we're doing, this final aspect. The glory of Divya Jnana, or transcendental knowledge. And that's what we're hearing about here. And not only that, there's two aspects here. You can read further.
No more illusion again.
Yeah, the first top on the top.
Two results of Jnana.
Yes. So why are we studying this Jnana? For these two main reasons. What are they?
No more illusion again.
No more illusion. That we won't be illusioned by anything material. We won't be confused about material activity anymore. Yeah?
Second, see all living beings as Krishna and Krishna.
Yes, that everything belongs to Krishna, is part and parcel of Krishna. So having this knowledge, this is not ordinary knowledge. So this is the level that we're hoping that this knowledge can build us and lead us up to. So let's see what Prabhupada put in the purport here quickly. So that's just like a summary of what we went over just in the last chapter, because we're coming to the end of this chapter. So in the last section, we're seeing how to acquire transcendental knowledge and what is the results of this transcendental knowledge. How to acquire it and what is the results of it. How to acquire this transcendental knowledge? You have to go to spiritual master. Only he can reveal to you this deep insight onto the transcendental knowledge. And then we also learned that there are three requirements for one to approach a spiritual master. What were they? Tadviri, Pranipatena, Pariprashnena and Sevaya. Three things. Paripatena, Pariprashnena and Sevaya. Prashna, you have to ask question, inquire. And Paripatena, in a certain mood. What is that mood? Submissive mood. And Sevaya, in service, you have to render some service. And then in 36, Krishna describes the process by which this happens. What is the process by which this happens? So this is such an exalted process that anybody who takes to this, anybody and everybody can become purified and liberated by following it. This is 36 is telling us. It's such an exalted thing. It's so powerful. Just like one of the most powerful elements of nature is fire. There's nothing that fire cannot incinerate or burn. This process is compared to that. No matter what your background is, this is the theme of what we're studying today. No matter what your background is, no matter what you come from, where you come from, if you acquire transcendental knowledge, you can purify yourself completely and go back to the spiritual world. Krishna is further saying, no matter how sinful the person is, Papa Krim Tannaha, no matter how sinful this person is. And then he gives the example of this and he compares it to a boat. A boat, a boat is used on an ocean. Now there's two powerful examples given here. One is of the boat, Plavena. We heard this today, Plavena. So transcendental knowledge is compared to this boat. Because a boat can save you. We'll see just now. When you're in the middle of the ocean, there's actually nothing that can actually rescue you. And you're really in the middle of nowhere. How many of you have been in a situation where you're completely surrounded by water? You can't see land. You can't see anything. Anybody has been in that situation? Now, usually if you have, you would have been in that situation on a boat. Right? You wouldn't have been in that situation in the water directly. So we're going to see just now what happens when you're in the water without a boat, trying to swim across the ocean. We're going to see just now. Okay. So how does this knowledge work then? How does this transcendental knowledge work? So it's not important where we are. It's important where we are looking. It's not important where we're standing right now. The important thing is to take the knowledge and move in the direction. Be guided by it. apply the knowledge. Just like in India, many people have this idea of going to the West. So they are situated here, but they are looking in the West. And Western people, or usually people like in America, where they're totally frustrated with material sense gratification, they are looking where? In the East. So both of them are looking in different directions. So there's a very significant thing happened in the early 60s, that there was a generation of young people who were actually looking for a higher purpose. They come from good backgrounds, they've come from wealthy backgrounds and families, but they were actually looking for a higher purpose in life, something that is can help them to understand, give meaning to life, because they realized very quickly that sense gratification can't give full meaning to my life. It's part of my life. One of the aspects of my existence is to search for pleasure, but it's not the summum bonum of my life. I have to also try to understand, give meaning to my life, and meaning means it has to be directed. There's a philosophical undertaking. You have to think about things. So these people at that time, they were classified as the flower people. They were very called at that time hippies. But their activities were also in sense gratification, but they were also searching upward, trying to search for something higher. And when they got it, that is a time when Prabhupada went to America. He started to preach. We'll see just now. And as by doing that, when they got real, genuine, transcendental knowledge from a bona fide spiritual master, it completely gave direction to their lives. And in that way, they were able to find meaning and fulfill their lives. So the hippies were born ignorant, but looking towards the East. They were born in ignorance, not like most of people like from India. They're born in some culture. They know about Krishna, they know about Bhagavad Gita. But which direction are they looking? They are looking in West. Hare Krishna. So they are looking in West. But the hippies, they're born in West, and they are looking to East for direction. So there was a nice saying at that time. They went, because they didn't want to conform to any kind of regulation. So they were saying the only regulation at that time was to break all the regulations. They would just do anything and everything, anything that just went. Because they're trying to find meaning. Can I find some deeper understanding to life? So, although they were in ignorance, they were looking upwards. They were searching for some meaning, trying to inward, upward. It's like a similar connection, trying to pray, find fulfillment. So the boat of transcendental knowledge came from Srila Prabhupada, and Srila Prabhupada saved them through that way. Now in today's verse, we have a very interesting phenomena that comes up. This one I'll show you this one. In English, it's called a paradox. A paradox means two different, something that says something but has two meanings to it. It has some opposite effect to it. And I want you to try to read this, and then we can see. Okay, this is the logical paradox that we're hearing about. Okay, 1 minute. This went back a bit. Okay. Alright, this is the logical paradox. Okay, Rasa Sindhu Prabhu, our
Logical paradox.
yes. What is? Okay.
Logical paradox.
Right.
If the person is sinful, then how can the person be knowledgeable?
So this is what we're hearing about. That the person, even a sinful person, even a sinful person by knowledge can transcend. This is what we heard about, right? But if a person is sinful, then how can he be in knowledge? Because if you know, you won't do sin. And if you're a sinner, then you don't know. Isn't it? You get it? Don't get it. You get it? If you're a sinner, that means you don't know. I didn't know that was the sin. Nobody told me. So this knowledge is saying it's so powerful, it can even purify a sinner. So the understanding, if the person is a sinner, then did he know or didn't he know? And he didn't know. And then if he didn't, if he's a sinner, was he in knowledge? And if he's knowledge, then how can he be a sinner then? So there's this paradox that comes up here, this double meaning. So it's showing something very powerful, that one may not have complete understanding from where the person is right now, but once transcendental knowledge is revealed, something very powerful happens. No matter what position the person is in, this knowledge is so powerful, it can completely liberate one, give up. One can move into the higher level of consciousness, no matter what the stage is right now. Right, like we know, we gave the example of the hippies, right? They were sinners, or so-called. They were doing all illicit activity, breaking all the principles that we follow. But once they came into transcendental knowledge, once they heard this from Srila Prabhupada, what happened after that? Even somebody who was not born in a proper cultural background, as we know it, which is the basis of Bhagavad Gita, was not born with Vedic qualities and teachings. Such a personality transcends everything and comes up right to the highest level of bhakti. What a transformation is that? What kind of knowledge is this that can transform like this to such a high level? That's why the title of this chapter is Glorification, this last part that we're studying, glorification of Divya Gyan, glorification of this knowledge. Because no matter where you're starting from, it can take you right up into the level of bhakti. Whereas other seekers, they have to go, like we've heard, they're doing different sacrifices, karma kanda, jnana kanda, different various sacrifices. So this is how powerful, this is why this knowledge is described as, no matter what your situation is, whether you're in the middle of the ocean, if you take this knowledge, it can save you. And even if you have the most sinful person, the greatest sinner, if you take to this knowledge, it can completely burn up all your sinful activities. And this is the greatest fear that people have. How am I going to get free from all this sin? How to get free from sinful. This is one of the impetuses of religion. This is what people preach with. That you want to be saved. If you don't follow such and such person, you won't be saved from all your sin. So it's a very powerful impetus to make somebody take to the process. So then let's go on quickly. Okay. Yeah, normally if he is knowledgeable, he then would not be sinful. We discussed that. So it's the opposite here. But Krishna is speaking here about a person who is most sinful. Now he is even now he is using this boat analogy. So the Acharyas tell us this knowledge is so powerful that even if a person is sinful, he can get purified by it. No matter what your status is right now, if you came in contact with transcendental knowledge from a bona fide source, you can reach the highest goal. This is what it's discussing here. By the intervening mercy of the spiritual master, if you meet such a person as a Tattvadarshi, this person can completely change your karmic situation at the moment and your gyan at the moment. Just by you rendering service to him in a simple, humble mood and inquiring submissively, this person is pleased, and he can give you such a depth of knowledge that it can completely transcend you to the spiritual world. So from Karma Yoga to Jnana Yoga, it is a rhetorical verse. It's like stylistic, linguistic. But the Bhakti Yoga, any person can get elevated to this. It has a certain requirement to it. But for karma and for jnana, you have to have certain credentials, certain base qualities that qualify you to do karma yoga and to do jnana yoga. At least as minimum, it's Vedic. What we talking about as the hippies, they weren't even Vedic. And look at them today. Look at them today. They're still glorious devotees of Krishna. They are great examples to us. So this is the power of bhakti then. This is what we're hearing about. And this is what Krishna is hinting to as the goal of the Bhagavad Gita. To come to this point. So just as the human form is not enough, to have human form is not enough. One has to have transcendental knowledge. One may think, well, I have the human form, I've done karma yoga, I've even done jnana yoga. Is that not enough then? You haven't been introduced to bhakti yoga, transcendental knowledge. Because both karma and jnana still binds you to this material world, like we've been hearing and we've been studying over this chapter. If you don't do karma, proper karma, you become bound. Lokayam karma bandhana. Yagyatam karma no netra. Lokayam karma bandhana. Yadatam karma konteya mukta sangam samachara. You become bound if you don't do this. So jnana is the same thing. You become bound by jnana. You think that your mental faculty is so strong that you can figure out everything. You can work out everything. But this process of humble, submissive inquiry with service, accompanied by service, this is revealing a whole different dimension of knowledge. So, and this knowledge is so powerful, the two examples we heard about, it can take somebody right across the ocean. And it can incinerate any amount of sin that you have. So isn't that a wonderful arrangement? Let's read on here quickly. So human form is not enough. We need transcendental knowledge to direct us. Just like this boat. The boat is transcendental knowledge. So the first level is to come to the human platform. Atata Brahma Jignasa. And then we need transcendental knowledge to take us higher into the deeper aspect of human, of what we mean by human being. If he doesn't inquire deeply, he's lost the purpose of human life. So not everybody will get the chance of transcendental knowledge. He has to meet a Tattvadarshi. If he doesn't meet a Tattvadarshi, in the net of devotion it's described how rare it is to meet a spiritual master. Brahmanda Brahmate Kon Bhagyavan Jeev is so fortunate. It's described that it's like a log floating on the ocean. And on that log there's a hole. And what is the chances of a turtle finding that log? Not only that, putting its head and its nose into the hole. What is the chances of that happening? Very, very rare. That's the chances equivalent of one finding a spiritual master. So, and he's the one who gives this great knowledge. So a man is dropped into the ocean, but how long can he swim? You take the fact that you can swim means you learnt it. Nobody is born a swimmer, right? I'm sure, I don't think there's anybody who's born a swimmer. He has to learn the art of swimming. So that's Gyan. He's learnt the art of swimming. But how long can he swim for? If you put you into the ocean, how long can you swim for? We'll see just now. So Prabhupada goes on to say, ISKCON is a boat. ISKCON is a boat, and Prabhupada has created this. Then in 37, one more example is given of transcendental knowledge. So we heard of the ocean example in 36, and now in 37 we're hearing of another example that purifies. When firewood comes into contact with blazing fire, you know, if you take logs of wood, dry wood, and you put it, you see that in yagya, and how quickly it burns. It incinerates, it burns immediately. And within no time, what you have left of that firewood? Just ash. Simply ash. So that's sinful reactions. It can be completely incinerated with transcendental knowledge also. So you don't have to fear what's going to happen if all the wrong that I did. In Isa Upanishad, the last verse, 18th mantra, in the 16th, from 16 to 18 is prayers offered by the devotee. And it's beautiful prayers of dependency, crying out to the Lord. And he's crying out, don't forget me. I did this. I made one garland for you. I cleaned your temple. I distributed one book for you. I chanted your holy name. Please, Krishna, don't forget me. It's a deep, heartfelt prayer. And as he's praying like this, the last verse, it suddenly strikes him. Oh, and don't forget also, all that sinful reactions that are there. Just also take care of that, It just struck him at that last moment. Oh yeah, the sinful reactions also. But here it's saying transcendental knowledge, one can get purified with this simply by following transcendental knowledge. So how a person gets karmically bound like this. So it doesn't matter how you get into this situation, how to get out. So in 419 we heard of this fire that can burn, the fire of knowledge, Jnanagni. Nana Jnani Dagdha. If you read there in 419, it's in the Sanskrit. I think it's probably the third line there. Nana Jnani Dagdha Karmanam. One who understood. Everybody got 419? Yeah. One who is understood to be in full knowledge, whose every endeavor is devoid of the desire for sense gratification. That means karma and jnana. Ho gaya. Finished. He is said to be, he is said by sages. Who is sages? Tattvadarshis, the seers of the truth. He is said to be sages, the authorities in this, to be a worker for whom the reactions of work have been burned up by the fire of perfect knowledge. So it's not new to us. We've discussed this verse before about fire of knowledge. But we just re-emphasizing it, this analogy of the fire. So the person who acquires jnana from a guru, that jnana becomes like fire. We also call this the Sankirtan fire. We become fired up. We use this phrase, fired up. So why is he burning in fire? Because he has knowledge. And nothing stands in the way of fire, nothing material. You put any form of matter in fire, at some phase of its existence, it will melt. Any form of matter, at some phase it will melt. So this fire of knowledge is completely destroying all forms of nescience, all forms of matter or material understandings. So all the karma we do is like the seed burnt up. So whatever karmic reaction was there, if you burn a seed, those of you who know cooking, one of the first spices you put in the pot is what? Mustard seed, sarsu. First one. And how do you know that this it's ready to put the next spice in? Fat. It makes it sputters. It makes what do you call that? Cracks. Yeah, it pops. It crackles. Then you know. Okay, next spice, jeera or ginger or whatever else you added in there. So at that stage, if you take out that mustard seed and try to grow it, will it grow? No, it's burnt up. Just like that it's described, the sinful reactions get burnt up by transcendental knowledge. So two examples were given again, we're going to see just now. Two examples, one of the ocean and one of the fire. So there is an ocean, so there is ocean of Gyan offers a way to get out. Gyan offers this, transcendental knowledge offers a way to get over the ocean. Because if you're in the middle of the ocean, there's no way you can swim it through. And fire burns up all karmic reactions. So both sides we cleared up there. So in the purport, Prabhupada speaks about pious and impious activities. So normally when we think of reactions, sinful reactions, it's usually the connotation is that of impious activity. But pious activity also binds. We learned that, right? Because what happens? What happens to pious people? Where do they go? Svargalok. They go to the heavenly planets. So how far is that? It's not too far. Because you come back here again. But transcendental knowledge takes you right across the ocean. It takes you right across the ocean. So it's a very deciding point. It's a very decisive point to get, to understand. So that's all the theory. Now we're going to see practically, can we take this knowledge out of the Bhagavad Gita into the material world? Let's see then. So that's the one we covered there. So what is that there? Firewood. So that's the example that we learnt about. Prabhupada is saying, fire can incinerate and burn anything. And we see that the fire has just started there. Then it's burnt further. You can see part of the wood is there, but it's quite burnt up. It's no longer logs of wood. It's actually charred coal. Yes, it's charred. And you see that fire again. It's really burning it up. And at this stage, you can see that it's firewood, but it's quite burnt. At this stage, you can see if you're going to touch that, when it cools down, if you touch that, it's actually just powder. It's just powder at that stage. So this is the fire. This is what happens, the residue of fire, ash. We heard that sinful reactions become ashes after that. It turns into ashes. This is, in the olden days, this is what they used to do. I think they still do it now also. Those who have fireplaces and chimneys. So how to clear that out? You got to collect all this ash out of there. You got to scrape it out. So what happened to all that firewood? It just became a whole bucket of ash. And that's sinful reactions there. Now, here's the ocean example. For one who's an ocean, he's trying to swim. This person is trying to swim across the ocean, right? So he's doing his strokes there and he's going across the ocean. Well, let's see for how long can he go across. If a boat doesn't come to actually save him, can he actually make it right across the ocean? Without the boat, we heard about this boat of transcendental knowledge, he's not going to be able to cross the ocean. Without somebody actually intervening and trying to save him, he's not going to actually cross it. That intervention is a spiritual master. So you can see here, this person is lucky, he's got two people intervening. One is Shiksha Guru, one is Diksha Guru. So this person is being saved here. And without the intervention of the Tattvadarshi, the spiritual master, he can't be saved. Because he's giving the transcendental knowledge of how to come out. So you can see here also, this person is on the boat. And he's rescuing this other person here. And you can see the ocean in the background, Samsara Davana, Davagni, it's the fire of material existence. See how rough the ocean water is there. But if you're on the boat, you're safe. And you can freely move. You can safely move. Now here this person, you can see what's around him. There's nothing but water. He's in the middle of the ocean. And he's trying to swim the ocean. How far is he going to get? How far is he going to get by trying to do this? You can see that, if lucky you can see some land on that side, but he's actually in the middle of nowhere. You can see his arm coming up there. And he's trying to cross over the ocean of material existence. Without the boat of transcendental knowledge, it's not going to be possible. Here's another person, same. See behind him how much of water is there. You can see the horizon. There's nothing around. So how long will this person last? Without the intervention of the spiritual master, the Tattvadarshi, they're not going to make it. Look here, you can get a better picture from this one. There's actually just water all around. It's not going to last long. Until you get rescue, the spiritual master. Okay? So I had Now, the process then of transcendental knowledge is that of what we do, the process of chanting. So no matter how sinful the person can be, if he takes to the process, if he understands, I have to chant Krishna's holy name. In this age of Kali, I have to chant Krishna's holy name. So if you see, there's all different kinds of people here. You can see all different kinds. You can see elderly gentlemen, you can see young people. So they have understood something about the philosophy, and they're all dancing because they're practicing the Yuga Dharma, Harinam Sankirtan. And if you understand that much, you can be saved. If you just engage in the process of chanting, you can see there's quite elderly people there. So they've realized something. I have to do this process if I want to transcend this material existence. And by engaging in it, they actually become happy. So you can see there's all kinds of people who took to the process of chanting. There's something else. So this is a person. Why I chose him? Because even a sinner who takes to transcendental knowledge can be purified. So this person, what does he know? He doesn't have big knowledge. He's not a big jnani. He's not a big karma yogi. He's not anything like that. But he's heard that if I dance in the kirtan of Lord Chaitanya, what can happen? I can get purified. So he's doing all these funny moves. He's doing all this funny dancing. He doesn't realize what he's actually doing. He's taking part in the Sankirtan Yajna of Lord Chaitanya. And that's the highest transcendental knowledge. So he may have been a great sinner, like we've heard today. But by him taking part in the process of the Sankirtan Yajna, he is more exalted than the Jnani, he is more exalted than the Karmi. This is the power of transcendental knowledge. So he may look funny just jumping around and moving around. But if he's understood that this is the Yuga Dharma, he's actually engaged in the highest process of knowledge. Okay, thank you. Let's see. Now this is what I wanted to show you is where it started. So one may think then, what about somebody, this is a very interesting one that I found. Do you think deaf people can chant? What happens to people who have disabilities? Like this particular person is deaf. So how does he do the Yuga Dharma? How does he get transcendental knowledge? And how does he apply it? So if you can read the subtitles there. He's actually using sign language. He's using sign language. If you read, you can understand what he's saying using his hands. And he's a devotee, so he's understood the principle of transcendental knowledge. And because of his bodily, because he's deaf means he must have done some sinful reaction in his past life, right? Isn't it? So therefore he's got some reaction now. And due to that reaction, still, even the greatest sinner can cross over the ocean, like we heard today. Even somebody like this person who is deaf, he can also cross over because he's understood the principle of transcendental knowledge, to chant, to do the Yuga Dharma. Isn't this amazing? And all this is coming from where it has started.
You think you have a better body?
Huh?
You think you have a better body?
A better?
You think you have a better body?
No, not at all. Not at all. Definitely not at all. But I'm just using that example because one may overlook that and say, well, maybe for me it's possible because, I can speak and hear. So how does a person who's deaf then get transcendental knowledge and how can he perfect his life? This is the example. It's an extreme one, but it's just to show you that anybody, like the verse was saying, no matter how great the sinner is, he can or she can make advancement through transcendental knowledge. So in the early days, we see a very great example of this. These are personalities like I was discussing, the hippies. So simply by meeting somebody like Srila Prabhupada, they would sit in the park and do all funny things like this. You can see the way they dress, long hair, trying to seek for something deeper. So they have something. You can see this person jump with some mala around his neck, and he's dancing. He's heard something about this person is quite like thinking or absorbed in something. So it's not to point out to the sinner. I'm not trying to do that. I'm trying to show that no matter what sinful situation we've come from, by knowing transcendental knowledge, we can transcend everything. Like we've heard in the purport. So we see here, this is how it started in the early days. Let's see if we can get Prabhupada here somewhere. So this is how it started. They must have understood something of what Prabhupada was giving, and by the Tattva Darshini, the sage or the great devotee, they applied the process and they did the chanting and they felt the experience. So all these personalities, they may seem funny, they may seem, like what are these people doing, but under the guidance of a bona fide, the Tattvadarshi, they are higher than anybody we've heard of thus far. Higher than the Jnani, higher than the Karmi. Yes, I think the Prabhupada is here somewhere. Yes, Srila Prabhupada ki. So this is how Prabhupada started. He was not disturbed that they were not following any particular Vedic system or anything like that. He just told them, chant. Just chant. By chanting, it's not an artificial imposition on the mind. It's coming from the soul. He's awakening you from the soul. So by doing that, by chanting, dancing, even unknowingly, in the presence of a great devotee of the Lord, all these people had gained transcendental knowledge, and they were able to cross over this ocean of birth and death. Okay, so 6:30, we'll stop there. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Any questions, comments?